Hey guys, this is Chachere and Jace, LeJeune of Grind Football. Day one of the state championships here in the state of Louisiana. The first game was a great game. It was a roller coaster of emotions.
Set the tone for
set the tone. But
Yeah.
then the second game, it was just a slaughterhouse, unfortunately. So
Yeah.
we're gonna talk about both games pretty shortly here. So the first game was Riverside and Southern Lab. Southern Lab, we both picked Southern Lab to win the game. Southern Lab was actually my pick to win the whole thing at the beginning of the playoffs. I had them and Riverside too in the state championship game when we first started out. And I expected Southern Lab to win by 2 or 3 touchdowns. I think you thought the same thing.
Right.
But this game was really, really close.
It was.
Riverside actually outgained Southern Lab.
Yeah.
Riverside actually threw for over 310 yards. Brock Bourgeois threw for 281 yards to be exact. And then they had the trick play by Kendrick Johnson.
Yep.
Who's a 8th grader, by the way. He was a receiver, and also they put him in Wildcat. But the game started off 14-0 by Riverside. It looked like they were about to pull away and come with this shocking upset. But then Southern Lab got it clicking. They scored 27 unanswered points, including a pick 6 near the end of the half with just like 5 seconds left by Ian James. And it looked like Southern Lab was getting ready to beat them down, but Riverside didn't give up. They scored a couple of touchdowns, and then from there it was just kind of back and forth, and Southern Lab eventually ended up winning 40-35. So, Jace, what do you have to say about that, the first game between Riverside and Southern Lab?
Yeah, and we talked about it really before the game when we had our show, Protect the Boot. We talked about it, and we pretty much figured that Riverside was going to throw the first punch, and that's what happened. Riverside threw the first punch, and they went up 14-0, and you wanted to say, like, okay, what does Southern Lab need to do in response, and how did they bounce back from getting punched in the mouth? And they did. And like you mentioned, they scored 27 unanswered points. So it was like, okay, you scored 27 unanswered points. You pretty much ride the storm out. And it looks like Southern Lab are going to halftime. It's like, Southern Lab's going to run away with this thing. But, hey, someone didn't tell 5'4" Dedrick Lassie that. I mean, he had 3 touchdowns in the second half, and they put Riverside up 35-27, but not only once but twice Southern Lab weathered the storm, came back. They scored 15 unanswered points at the very end. The running game was really big for them. I believe 3 different players, I think, scored touchdowns for them in the first game. So that really showed me a lot. We all know about Southern Lab and their athletes and what they can do, but what impressed me the most was their resolve. Not once but twice they were down big. They were down, and they fought their way back. They were down big at the beginning. They were down in the fourth quarter by 8, and they battled their way back in order to win. That showed me a lot of a really Coach Asbury's squad. And what can you really say about the Kittens? I believe this is their 6th state championship, and 2 in 3 years. So they really, Coach Asbury's doing an excellent job and really building something special at Southern Lab.
Right, and also, speaking of Riverside, they're a really young team. Like I said, Kendrick Johnson.
8th grader.
He's an 8th grader, and then they had another 8th grader over there too in the receiving corps. So they had 2 8th graders in the receiving corps.
And Dedrick's only a junior, so you're going to have him back for another year.
Exactly. And he had a big game, 111 yards for 3 touchdowns. I mean, that's kind of what we expect from him. He's always been a big-time player for him, despite his small stature, per se.
Yeah. He's a baller.
Right, and also the quarterback's a sophomore, too. They're a really young team, so the fact that they're able to get this experience and play against a really talented Southern Lab team. Now, they were without their offensive lineman, Jude Foster, because he had a boot on actually on the sidelines, but that's a great performance by both teams, really. And Riverside, I think they have something to say for next year because all of those guys are returning.
Yeah, and the defense made some timely plays. I mean, Dylan Day, the Miami commit, leads the way. He was all over the field making tackles, and I believe they had 5 sacks. So, and they got the stop at the end when they needed it, forcing a 4th turnover on down. So, excellent game, really, to set the tone. And if you want to go and find out more of the article, make sure to go to GridironFootballUSA.com and check it out.
Yeah, and then moving on to our second game. This is the game that I thought it was gonna be a little closer. Haynesville and Oak Grove. Oak Grove ended up winning 62-36. Kind of similar to their first game. I think because of their first game, it was such a blowout that you think, okay, maybe they don't want that to happen again. and make it a little closer. We saw that with LC and Turlings.
Yeah.
In the last week with Turlings, LCA beat them 42-35, but they actually beat them 61-3 in the regular season. So I think everyone thought, okay, this game should be really close. And speaking with Clay Parker, K104, he thought the game was supposed to be close too.
Yeah.
But it just ended up big game in the
started off pretty fun.
Yeah,
I mean, we had 14-7. It was going back and forth.
It was 7-7. It was 7-7. The Jackson Bradley scored the first touchdown. Then they had that 58-yard bomb for Haynesville by Isaiah Washington touchdown pass. And so you thought, okay, maybe we're gonna have another roller coaster. And then that kickoff return happened, and then just everything spiraled out of
Jackson Brown
control.
had another long touchdown.
Yeah, and then just, like, it just got out of control. Then James Harris had that interception. Like, yeah, this ain't gonna be pretty. Even Andy's like, yeah, I had to.
But yeah, it wasn't pretty. It was dominated by Oak Grove in the first half. But I do say Haynesville played a lot better in the second half and really put up some points in the second half.
And you know, the Oak Grove rushed for a state championship record of 402 yards. They just looked like the better team today, but it's not anything to take away from Haynesville. Haynesville only had 9 seniors on their team this year.
Yeah.
And so the fact that they would make the first state championship since 2016,
which is surprising.
Right, it's surprising because they're a 17-time state state champion. So, you know, and, you know, like Coach Franklin said, you know, you kind of, you know, I would say you get a little cocky, you know, you expect to be there. So the fact they haven't been there 7 years, I think, added fuel to the fire. But, you know, unfortunately, they came up short, maybe real short, depending on how you want to look at it. But I think this experience is great for that program, since that even though they have a lot of experience, like Coach said, they're not really a young team. Anytime you have only had 9 seniors on your football team, you're a pretty young team.
Head of schedule.
Yeah, and you're ahead of schedule. I think next year, I think it'll be great again. I expect them to be here next year because the quarterback, mostly everyone's coming back. So I expect them to be really good again next year. Gold Tornado, I think they will soon win their 18th state championship. It'll be
long time
pretty
coming.
soon.
It's been a long time coming.
Right.
But speaking of state championships and adding state championships to the mantle, I mean, Oak Grove, what can you say about them? I think this is 4 and 5 years under Coach Gregory, and he tied a legendary head coach, Vic Dalrymple, with 4. And considering all the success Vic Dalrymple has had at Oak Grove in the 90s and the early 2000s, that's saying a lot. And he's done that in a 5-year period, so which is even more incredible. And it could be 5 and 6 because when you have Jackson Bradley return for next year, Jay Freeman, I believe, comes back for next year as well. So you got a lot of your core pieces. Obviously, you lose James Harris on the defense at linebacker, but looking at some of those guys, and I was going through the roster in the second half, they got some grown men, and they're like sophomores and juniors. So Oak Grove's going to be just fine next year. And Coach Ryan Gregory, what can you say about him? He's really building a dynasty over there, and he said in the press conference, I mean, about to say, he's already built a dynasty, but it's scary how much this could really be. Is what I'm saying. But what can you say? Impressive. And he even said in the post-game interview that this is an expectation. Like, it's not to be like spoiled or like just be cocky or anything like that. It's like, this is what we build a program on, to be in the Dome in December. And man, they've done it again back-to-back 4 and 5 years. The only other team that has won the state championship in that time frame has been Homer. Wow. I mean, it's been crazy. They're getting better and better each and every year, and it's going to be scary. I know they're going to be celebrating the state championship, but it's going to be scary what Oak Grove looks like next year.
Right, and Jay Freeman looked great again. He had another 100-yard performance last week. He ran for 254 yards and 5 touchdowns. This time around, he rushed for, I believe it was about 175 yards and 4 touchdowns. He had 173 yards and 4 touchdowns. So he had another great performance. And really, he was a receiver. He was a weak receiver. I think, but it was around week 4, week 5 where they made the switch to running back. I think that paid off greatly for that program because they haven't. You have Jackson Bradley, who's a great rusher. He's like a redhead Tim Tebow, if you can say that.
Taysom Hill.
I say Tim Tebow because he's a big boy. He's a big boy, man. But Jay Freeman adds you add a Jay Freeman in the mix, so you have another dynamic runner. So, and they both return next year, by the way, too. So they're still gonna have a lot of talent returned at Oak Grove next year.
Over 60 points on the scoreboard.
Over a great Haynesville team. So yeah, guys, that's it. That's it for tonight. We have 3 games tomorrow night. Even though there may not be the games like on Saturday, I expect it all to be great. Cecilia at Opelousas is gonna be a great game.
That's gonna be a good one.
You got Union Parish and St. James. Yep. That's gonna be. I think that's gonna be a great matchup. And then the last game at Acadiana and Glenville. I think that's Acadiana and Catholic. I think that's the game.
A lot of people have been looking forward to that one.
A lot of people. Yeah,
it's gonna be a good one. But Sun Lab, Oak Grove, I mean, more the same, right? These are 2 programs that are used to winning state championships and used to getting hardware. So.
And really, you don't see those 2 teams play each other that often. I mean, they got to think about it. When was the last time Acadiana and Catholic played each other? So these are 2. Even though Catholic's familiar with the Veer because of Curtis. I mean, but Acadiana, but they haven't really played Acadiana ever. So, but
I'm gonna see what Catholic's O-line and Daniel Beal does against Dominic McKinley.
Oh yeah, Valen Charles, and Darius McKinley too. Dominic's younger brother, So it'll be a great matchup. But this is Grant Chachere, Jace LeJeune of Gridiron Football.
Yeah, make sure to check out our content, GridironFootballUSA.com. Now tomorrow. We're actually going to have live video updates too tomorrow. So for our video highlights from today, you'll probably see it first thing in the morning. And then we'll also have our post-game articles. You can go back and check all the recaps from Thursday's action at GridironFootballUSA.com.
See you guys tomorrow. Peace.